Hello, I'm Isabel from ISAP, and I'll be interviewing Delphine Treville today, who is head lecturer at ISAP and director of the EIPA schools in Montpellier and Paris. Hello, Delphine.
Hi, Isabel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? So,
Great.
can you tell us a bit about ISAP and what it stands for?
Oh, yeah. So ISAP is the International Society of Applied Psychoanalysis. So most people don't really know what applied psychoanalysis means in terms of different schools of thoughts and all of the different types of associations in regards to psychoanalysis and psychotherapy. This particular association has a very clear objective behind the word applied, which means that we believe that psychoanalysis should and can be applied to anyone. So it's on any different level of society, culture, education, as a therapeutic tool, and also as a basic understanding of how the psyche works, what makes us tick, what's behind our different behaviors, and also really questions our way of interacting with one another, even in our communications. For instance, we may feel like we don't understand each other or unable to get our point across. These are all situations that are related to the way that the psyche works, and we're interested at using psychoanalysis to understand the basic fundamentals of the psyche, and on one part, helping people in their daily lives, just like a basic hygiene of the mind, really. And then we have another activity, which is training future therapists and psychoanalysts.
Okay, so there's really like two things to hear that I'm hearing. You have like both a society and schools where you teach. How exactly does that work with one another?
Yeah, actually, ISAP is sort of the umbrella association that carries the physical schools, which right now are in the south of France and in Paris. Aside from that, the teaching is online. So the schools in France are on-site learning in French for now. And then for the rest of the world, the teachings are online through either audio files or PDF files. But also there's interaction with the lecturer, which most of the time is myself, but can be also other people. We also do the therapy and training analysis online. And we work with countries where psychoanalysis is not at all developed. And that's kind of what we're interested in, is to bring the psychoanalytical philosophy into parts of the world that otherwise would not have access to it.
Okay, so the point there would be that you'd like to train your own kind of therapist to then join your society, or outside members also welcome within the society?
Oh yeah, we absolutely welcome everyone within the society. There are the students who automatically become part of the society if they wish to, of course. And then we also work with mental health professionals, so different types of fields where we like to exchange, because we also think that we need to have a wide scope of understanding of humanity as an individual, as a collective group, and also within their different types of societies. This allows us to exchange information, to have different perceptions on different situations. For one, the society today, well, our Western culture, for instance, is not the same today as it was in Freud's time. So things need to be integrated in our way of practicing and also in our philosophy that are more modern, that take into consideration today's reality. So, for instance, we could talk about the Oedipus complex in a family structure, but what happens when that family structure is a single parent or homosexual couple, or whatever the different type of configurations that we're having today? We need to take that into consideration. Now, because we work with a lot of countries that have very specifically different cultures, very impacted by religion, maybe also, these are also things that we need to take into consideration. Of course, it's not going to be the same thing discussing psychosexual development of the child in Iran, let's say, or places where there's going to be definitely some difficulty, some cultural difficulty to accept, understand, and integrate certain things about the place of women, for instance, in the culture and the society, and how our perception of each other actually affects the way that we think and the way that we act.
Right. Okay. So anyone who can like enter the society can bring in their own point of view, but then when you refer to bringing out theories to help in these like third world countries to integrate applied psychoanalysis there, you would prefer that the people first take some sort of education from the society, from the schools that you run?
Well, not necessarily. Of course, it's better because then we speak the same language, but it's not necessary. And that's why we've developed different levels of membership. So there are specific levels of membership for people who are not part of our training, but want to participate with ISAP with their own background and thoughts. They're very welcome because, again, that allows a much richer exchange of thought patterns and points of views that are always very welcome. And there's definitely a lot to be said about widening our perspectives in different fields that can be different fields of psychology, but not only. I think all of the social sciences have something, are part of psychoanalysis. So though psychoanalysis seems to be the trunk, let's say, of our human psyche, or the understanding of our human psyche, it's not enough. There has to be also, we have to look at things in different ways. So we're interested in talking to people who have a understanding of the person in their environment according to different factors, and that's why that exchange is really great. And it doesn't matter if psychoanalysis is not necessarily their line of work or of interest. Those conversations are always very meaningful.
Okay, you spoke before about different levels within the society. Could you like explain a bit more how that works, like what the levels are?
Well, the first level is going to be for so the outside people that are not necessarily trained in psychoanalysis but want to participate in these conversations. And then we have the second level, which is going to be the students. So they're going through the training but have not yet graduated from the training. And it's not because they haven't yet graduated that they're not interesting also. So we want to have them part of the discussion too, because everyone comes with their own background and experience. And once again, the more we have prisms of perception, the better understanding we have of the whole of the human. So the students are also welcome to be part of this conversation. And then the third level is going to be the graduates. The graduates are so either the graduated therapists or the graduated analysts. They'll be participating a little bit more if, of course, they want to. They'll have the possibility to participate a little bit more, where ultimately they'll be able to also participate in the training, in the communications, if they want to set up also events, things around them in their own environment in their own society that that they feel would be important and useful.
I'm certain that there's a level, including you also, of the, you know, the lecturers that are.
Yes, yes, that's right. There is another level, which is afterwards. So the training analysts and the lecturers. Yeah, that's right.
So they will be basically spreading the philosophy behind ISAP to enlarge in the community and like being able to spread it forth in where it's needed. Like you say, like it's a form of like basic hygiene of the mind that, you know, everyone should be able to have access and practice the psychoanalysis that you bring forth. When you are teaching in your school, is there like a certain structure that you uphold, or do you have like a syllabus that you use, or is it like something that you've created yourself based on the education you received?
Yeah, it's a 5-year program that's separated in 3 cycles. So the first cycle is 1 year, which is very easily accessible to anyone. You don't need to have a psychological background or training. And this first level, this first year, let's say, it's more or less 10 months. We run on a school year. Those are 2-hour lectures that are going to follow a specific program with a bibliography. And the point of this first year is to acquire the basic understanding of the concepts and the vocabulary, so that it has some sort. It starts taking you on to thinking about, rather, it's going to get you thinking about who you are, the environment you're in, the different choices you've made. It's actually quite therapeutic just to be taking the first year without necessarily wanting to practice. You don't have to want to be a therapist or a psychoanalyst to do the first year. That's completely, we can separate it, and that's why it's a cycle on its own. Then the second cycle is the second and third year, which are a little bit more intense. We do case studies where we'll simulate real case studies so that we can start practicing. We can start foreseeing ourselves in that position, in that role, and understand the case studies, understand being able to analyze a case, but also analyze yourself in the position of the therapist or analyst. And then fourth and fifth year, which continue towards psychoanalyst. So normally you start practicing after year 3, which means that you're actively, as a therapist, you have actual real life experience as you continue year 4 and 5, because that's what's going to give you the necessary personal experience to continue to understand the concepts of year 4 and 5 towards practicing as a psychoanalyst.
Okay. And so your teachings are based on Freud, or they're inspired by other psychoanalysts?
Well, like I said earlier, we're interested in having a very wide perception of things. So Freud is obviously the basis of psychoanalysis. I think that that's true for any psychoanalytical society. But we have to take into consideration today's reality. So all of the different social phenomena and environmental phenomena.
So you mentioned before that your level 3 are, for example, your graduates, or I think your level 2 are your students, and that, you know, they can participate within the society amongst the other activities that they have going on. So how much personal work do they actually put in within the society as being a student in your schools?
Well, that's going to depend on individual situations. So for the first year, because that's really something that we can separate from wanting to practice as a therapist or analyst, that's really free. People can either stick with just the lectures, or they can start also participating in some of the other projects that we have. For instance, we have work groups where we'll take a subject and we'll gather all of the students from year 1 to year 5, and they will have a discussion around that topic. The point of that being, obviously, to learn something about the topic, but it's also so that everyone can meet each other and start creating a network. We feel that networking is very important because we don't want to just train the students. We want them to be actively working once they're settled. And also because it's not because someone from year one, as opposed to someone from year 5, would have less to share, because once again, we come in with our own experiences and baggage, which is always interesting to share. So it's really very open and casual, on a voluntary basis. Nothing is mandatory, but we do have these opportunities for students to meet each other and work around certain themes. We also have another project which is called Social Psychodynamics. So, as you know, psychoanalysis is psychodynamic theory. We've called it that so because we're giving it also a social spin, where we want to go out into the public, let the public meet us as well, around different themes. So right now, for instance, we're working a lot with teenagers and young adults because we find that their situation is very complicated. The whole COVID, the whole pandemic situation has made things very complicated for them. They have a deep sense of being isolated, of missing out. They're lacking footholds for their future, and they're a little bit lost. A lot of them are depressed. There's a lot of anxiety. So we found that was something really important to consider and work on. So what we do is offer them group. I guess it's not really a group therapy, but more of a group discussion, where everyone can come in and share their experiences. And there's always 2 therapists or 2 analysts that run these groups, so that there are some answers. They feel like they can find some answers, but at the same time, it's also so that they meet each other and feel less isolated. And we hold these regularly, twice a month, and it's all free and it's open to whoever. So these are different types of projects that we work on, where that's very important to us, because we really want psychoanalysis to not just be a theory, but be something that is actually applied to the population, no matter where that population is or who that population is. We believe that that's fundamentally important, to have this tool of understanding, and then therapy when needed, but at least understanding.
Right, so basically accessible for anyone who would like to either use psychoanalysis for themselves or to learn it to help others understand themselves better and eventually maybe even become a therapist themselves.
Yes, that's right. And so personal work obviously was going to be a little bit more intense in the following years, but it's still, everything is done on a very personal level. So, we don't exclude anyone, and we can adapt to individual situations. I guess the other point I have to mention is that obviously your personal analysis is mandatory, which makes sense, because that's what's going to allow you to, well, it's your personal analysis, and then it's going to be training analysis, because that's what allows you to really bind the theory to your own experience. So it's every subject that we're going to raise is going to start working in your own psyche on a conscious or unconscious level. So these are things that most people feel like they want to talk about. And those people who are starting the training and want to practice as a therapist or an analyst really have to do this work on themselves, because you can't be in this position. You can't work as a therapist or an analyst without having experienced it yourself. That is what's going to be able to, that it'll teach you how to make sense of the theory in actual real experience, but also it's what's going to guarantee a neutrality. And that's very important, so that you are able to discern the difference between your own content and the patient's content, so that those don't get mixed up, and you can have that neutral position, so that you can be the mirror, so to speak, for your patient.
So for instance, for example, like, as it seems like it's very tailored to anyone who can just walk into here. You can either become a member with already having a background into the society and participate from your own point of view, or you can become a patient having assigned a therapist throughout the society. And then you can also become a student at one of your schools to then be trained to then actually become naturally a member of the society, but then also apply the same to either patient or fellow members of the society to apply psychoanalysis everywhere in the world for anyone that needs or wants to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's really just a basic understanding of how we work. For instance, we know and understand why we have to wash our hands or brush our teeth. Those same basic rules apply to our psyche and to our mental well-being. And we find that there's a lack of this type of communication or education in our environment, in our Western world, but even more so in other parts of the world where that's just not an option.
So let's say, for example, that you are a nurse in Turkey and you would like to, from your point of view, become a member of the society, you find it interesting, and you want to become a student, you can like participate in the first year online then, and then actually, help yourself in your job better.
Yeah,
And perhaps even become a therapist yourself, eventually guiding other people.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds very exciting. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you, Isabel. Bye.
Bye.